Mr. Speaker, when the Adoption Act was first passed in 2020, it was celebrated as a principal legislation for both domestic and inter-country adoptions. It brought the Hague Convention into our legal framework and put the best interests of the child at the center of the law. However, as our judiciary and legal practitioners began to apply it, they hit significant roadblocks. Unclear procedures created operational gaps. This forced us to put adoption cases on hold while we work to amend the law and make it truly functional. We've now overcome those challenges through the Adoption Amendment Act 2025, alongside the newly enacted Adoption Regulations 2026 and Adoption Family Division Court Rules 2026. We have built a seamless, comprehensive framework. This new system, which officially commenced in March of this year, completely transforms how we handle adoption. A major pillar of this change is the new pre-court adoption process led by the Department of Children. Before any adoption case ever reaches a courtroom, whether it involves relatives, step-parents, or a prospective adoptive parents, the department now conducts rigorous screening, assessment, and preparation. This ensures that every child's safety and best interests are fully secured beforehand, Mr. Speaker. The impact of these reforms is already clear. Since March, a total of 306 local cases have been registered for pre-adoption processes across our district offices. Of those, 16 cases have progressed to court filings, and we have already seen our first adoption court order successfully granted at the Lautoka Magistrates Court. Yes, this new legislation demands a higher level of compliance, deeper scrutiny, and more thorough work from all of us. But it is necessary work. By strengthening our confidentiality oversight and placement procedures, we are finally fully aligned with the global standards of the Hague Convention on the inter-country adoption. I want to extend my deepest appreciation to the judiciary, the Department of Children, and all the stakeholders who collaborated seamlessly to bring these regulations to life. Together, we have built a rigorous, protective, and a system that our children truly deserve. And the hold of the past 5 years is over, and these are being processed through the courts. Mr. Speaker, we continue to fortify Fiji's child protection framework through the Child Care and Protection Act 2024 and Child Justice Act of 2024. Our ministry has finalized the drafted regulations for these two critical pieces of legislation. They'll shortly be submitted to Cabinet for endorsement, after which both landmark laws are expected to officially commence in the first quarter of this financial year, around October. Mr. Speaker, so the drafting of these regulations alongside their corresponding standard operating procedures and administrative forms was not done in isolation. Robust, wide-ranging national consultations were held with key legal and institutional partners. It was important that the judiciary was fully included. The Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, the Office of the Solicitor General, the Legal Aid Commission, the Fiji Law Society, the Ministries of Justice, Education, Youth and Health all contributed. We further engaged extensively with the Fiji Police Force, Fiji Corrections Services, residential managers, civil society organizations, faith-based organizations, and the National Coordinating Committee on Children. I must emphasize that these consultations were vital to ensuring seamless, coordinated processes across all state and non-state agencies. And this has taken its time, but it is being done, which is a massive undertaking and was funded through the normal budgetary processes, supplemented by generous and steadfast support of our development partners, namely the UNICEF and DFED. Mr. Speaker, allow me to briefly outline what these regulations entail to illustrate how they will safeguard our most vulnerable citizens. The Child and Protection Regulations will provide the practical machinery and service standards required to operationalize the Principal Act. Specifically, these regulations will establish strict statutory requirements for registering and monitoring child protection agencies and children's homes, outlining mandatory staffing ratios, safeguarding protocols, and institutional accountability. It will also strengthen mandatory reporting mechanisms, mandate secure information management, enforce strict timelines so that the urgent child safety cases are assessed and acted upon promptly. Mr. Speaker, it will also strengthen family and child participation in ongoing care planning, ensuring that a child's cultural, religious, family, and community connections are preserved and respected. It will prioritize safe, stable, and nurturing placements by enforcing rigorous, ongoing oversight of foster and institutional care environments. Turning to the child justice regulations, Mr. Speaker, this framework establishes a modern, rehabilitative administrative ecosystem for children who come into conflict with the law. Crucially, this Parliament has already taken the progressive step of raising the age criminality liability of 10 to 14 years old. And these regulations provide the tools to manage this paradigm shift. The regulation will prescribe standard forms and process for all law enforcement and justice sector agencies handling youth cases. Enforce rigid compliance for approved child justice organizations, including mandatory notifications regarding staff criminal charges and granting state inspectors full access to physical and digital case records. Detail clear procedures and referral timelines for diversion plans, community conferencing, and wraparound support services, while strictly defining eligible convenience and their training qualifications. It will standardize court-ordered interventions, including social inquiry reports, community volunteer supervision frameworks, and community-based correction options centered on rehabilitation. It will also create offenses for individuals who obstruct, authorize child justice or welfare officers, or who falsely represent themselves as holding such authority, carrying penalties of up to $1,000 or 6 months imprisonment or both. Finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, the operationalization of these two comprehensive laws represents a major structural shift. Consequently, the Department of Children will progressively require focused, strategic resourcing over the next 3 fiscal years to fully realize the intent of these reforms. All subsequent resourcing requests will be aggressively pursued through the normal budgetary process alongside continued alignment with our international development partners. Mr. Speaker, may I take this time as school holidays begin today to send a strong message to parents and caregivers. Please keep an eye on our children and remind them to stay away from roads and rivers without adult supervision. The weather is very unpredictable, much windier than usual, and for coastal and maritime villages, to ensure that children are strictly supervised when playing in the ocean. It is very wonderful to see so many sporting activities, and I know many people in this house are cheering their schools. And as many of our children are growing and thriving through these sporting events happening around the country, I wish to plead with children, teachers, parents, and guardians to keep safety at the forefront. And since it's holiday time, on digital front, while gadgets are an easy way to keep kids busy, please use parental controls to protect them from harmful content. And before I take my seat, Honorable Speaker, I want to congratulate and celebrate the incredible team at the NGO Friend for reaching their 25th anniversary, and congratulate them on their 10 years of successful partnership with Prouds to distribute the products. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir.